emotionally difficult, right? And I just wanted to look at positive Jewish content and positive Jewish stories. And with my experience and love of the music industry, that's where I gravitated to. And so Storied's whole agenda is just to look at the positive Jewish narratives.
Welcome to the Social Dialogue Podcast. We're a mother-daughter team, both working in the world of social media management.
Join us as we share our different perspectives on life today, including trends, fashion, friendships, and career, and how social media impacts it all. Together, we bring two perspectives to one conversation.
I'm Shane.
And I'm Jenna.
And we're excited to bring you this new episode of the Social Dialogue Podcast. We are starting a new segment here where sometimes Jenna doesn't join me because she's graduating. She's got a lot going on. She's like, Mom, I have finals. So I thought this would be a good time to start doing client conversations. So you're my first client that I'm having on to kind of talk about who you are, what you do, but also social specifically. So first, I'm going to introduce you. So Benji Rosenzweig is my first client today that I'm having on for client conversations. So welcome, Benji.
Hello.
Benji and I work together on his brand Storied, the untold Jewish stories behind your favorite music. Storied is part podcast, part live show. It's a well-researched, well-produced show on both sides of the business, all about how members of the Jewish community were part of what made the Beatles great, what brought the grunge movement to life, what makes reggae special, and now a brand new show tells the story of Jewish women and their contribution to music in all aspects, from writing, managing, and performing. Benji was also a panelist at the recent ADL Never Is Now conference that I attended, so I got to sit in his session, and he's very involved in his local community of Detroit. I believe in your spare time, you also have a wife and two daughters, and I think you still do some commercial real estate, am I right?
Yeah, in my spare time.
Spare time.
Yeah, still have to make a living.
So you're a little bit busy, but I'm glad that you made time today. We've both had like the Tetris game of calendars lately, so it's good to see you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
So, Benji, I know I introduced you, but tell us a little bit in your words who you are, what you do, and kind of how you got here.
Yeah. So I'm thrilled to be here. I am by trade, I'm a commercial real estate broker. I do a lot of urban development in the city of Detroit, kind of one of those guys who just enjoys helping small businesses and corporate clients develop and be a part of the retail community. Do a lot of apartment buildings, buying and selling office buildings, things like that. So very dry, not fun to normal people type of real estate work. I'm married, amazing wife, Sarah. We've got two girls, a 16 and a 15-year-old. Ella, our younger daughter, has special needs. She has something called Coffin-Sirer syndrome, which is a genetic mutation. When I say rare, I mean there's about 600 known cases in the world, and that condition causes structural defects in the body. The main issue that Ella has is called agenesis of the corpus callosum, which means the corpus callosum, the bridge between the right and the left part of the brain, never formed. So that leaves her, I don't like to use the word nonverbal because while her receptive language is 100%, she doesn't use words, but she's a really good communicator. So she's able to use sign language, some of which is like ASL, sort of traditional sign languages. A lot of it is made up. And it's just sort of a trial and error of us figuring out what she's saying. But we used music videos, and really she used music videos to learn how to speak emotionally without using words. And so whether it's Lizzo or Aretha Franklin or Whitney Houston, or I don't know if you're finding the pattern of what Ella likes, RuPaul, these sort of music video for lack of a better word, emoting, right? Making these gestures that get the point across, or facial expressions that get the point across, is how she learned how to build a language. And that turned into us doing a TED Talk, specifically talking about this, and doing some consulting and public speaking about nonverbal communication and how to use it, and special needs advocacy. And so that was kind of cool. But after October 7th, all of that sort of went away, and there was just a heavy focus on advocating for our community and talking about what's going on in Israel. And, I come from a world that's pretty liberal and open-minded. And, I'm in the music community, I'm in the recovery community, I'm in the special needs community. And they kind of turned their backs on us. And I was like, hey guys, we need to have some conversations about truth. And that turned into me advocating for Jews online. It's a long-winded answer, but that's how we got here.
Well, and Storied really brings the positive side. There's nothing in there where you're like arguing with people. This is just about Jewish stories and Jewish joy. And, that's really what we need. I mean, we can argue till we're blue in the face with crazy people online, but, what you're doing is putting out just factual, wonderful entertainment that people can just go and enjoy. If they're Jewish, it might be an opportunity to just kind of put the world aside for a minute. And if they're not, maybe they'll learn a thing or two.
Yeah, so you hit the nail on the head. How this came about, how Story came about was, we after October 7th, we went to a bar mitzvah, and the bar mitzvah boys talking about hostages and sexual assault and unpleasant things, and I'm like, this is appropriate. Right? It's appropriately difficult and uncomfortable, but how sad it is that weddings and bar mitzvahs and what should be happy occasions are emotionally difficult, right? And I just wanted to look at positive Jewish content and positive Jewish stories. And with my experience and love of the music industry, that's where I gravitated to. And so Storied's whole agenda is just to look at the positive Jewish narratives. There's a couple of not positive stories, but for the most part, positive Jewish narratives of where Jews in the Jewish community collaborated and contributed. And so I focus on really nostalgic genres and bands. So our first show was about the Beatles, and people either love the Beatles or they don't care about the Beatles. Very few people dislike the Beatles. But people were like, oh, you're going to do the Brian Epstein story. And I'm like, well, Brian's one of 14 stories in this show, and people can't believe that there's 13 other stories in the show. But really, we look at, over decades, how Jews collaborated and contributed with the Beatles. And then same thing when we did the grunge show, people are like, okay, so you're going to talk about Hillel Slovak. And I'm like, Hillel's one of 3 Jewish members of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. People are like, there's 2 other Jewish members. I'm like, yeah, that's the crazy thing, is people don't realize that there's so much there. And just being able to tell these stories in situations where like people who love grunge, like really love grunge, In fact, the music director for that show, when he heard that I was there, he's like, you can't do the show without me. You have to hire me to do the show with you. And I'm like, I love that energy. Let's do it. That's really what I'm focused on is these positive Jewish stories and building bridges and really, like when we did the reggae show, I learned a ton in the research, and I realized that like this wasn't as much about building bridges. It was about shining a spotlight on the bridges that exist so that we can use them, because we just haven't been using those bridges. And so, I'm just trying to give people the opportunity to see and understand, within the Jewish community, have that pride, and outside the Jewish community, like if you don't know this story, like we're participating in the joy in your life.
And like even like we've talked about the Dead show, that you could bring that really anywhere. It doesn't have to be a Jewish audience. There's a lot of Dead fans out there, and they just may learn a few stories that they didn't know before. So, okay, here's my question. I've never asked you this before. Did you know a lot of this before, or has it come through research? Because your knowledge base about the behind the scenes of the Beatles and then of the genres, I mean, you have a wealth of knowledge. Did you grow up knowing all of this, or have you learned a lot of it over the past few years?
That's a great question. So my favorite show when I was a kid growing up was VH1 Storytellers and VH1 Behind the Music and MTV Storytellers. Like those sort of like behind the music shows were my favorite. And so in the women's show, when we did the Sharon Osbourne story, like most of the stuff that I talked about were things that I saw in an episode about Ozzy and Black Sabbath in 1998. Like I knew that stuff was there because I really love that content. And every time there's like a documentary that comes out about a band that I love, like I'll watch it and I enjoy learning those stories. In fact, my email, YU Jam, right? So I went to Yeshiva University and I had a radio show at Yeshiva University called YU Jam. with the double entendre of YU. But the whole show was looking at what made the musicians write those albums, write those songs, like what made them tick. Like that's just a subject that I've always enjoyed. And so I didn't know everything that I talk about in Storied. I've done hundreds of hours of research, but I knew what stories I was pursuing and I knew what rocks to look under and what like rabbit holes to go on to find these stories. I did a ton of research, especially on the Beatles stuff. I didn't know a lot of the stuff that I found, but like in the grunge show, I knew I got to uncover these conversations about Chris Cornell because I knew that there was something there, but I never really explored it. So, being able to like get through. So Chris Cornell was married to a woman named Susan Silver, who's Jewish. She's still around. She's a Jewish woman was the business manager for Alice in Chains. I didn't realize that she worked with Alice in Chains, and also didn't realize that Pearl Jam tried to hire her, but she was like, "Hey, that's a conflict of interest if I work with you and with Alice in Chains," while she's married to Chris Cornell. And so she actually introduced Pearl Jam to the guy who ended up working for them. And she was like, "Yeah, the only regret I have in my life is that I didn't work with Pearl Jam." But when they were inducted into the Hall of Fame, they were like, "Susan is the reason why we're here." So like
That's so
this
cool.
so she's a powerhouse in the grunge scene that I knew of, but didn't really know the whole story. And through this research was able to tell this story about Susan Silver. And we talked about her in the women's show a couple weeks ago. But like those types of stories, I love
Yeah.
that, and knowing the rabbit holes, and then not knowing what else I'm going to find is really exciting for me.
You've had some really cool guests. I mean, you had the Beatles hairdresser. That is the coolest thing. You've had some people on there that I didn't even know would be related to these. Like Jonah Platt, I know is in the music industry, sort of. I mean, his father, he's in the industry, but like he's really knowledgeable on the subjects that you asked him about. And then like Amanda Markowitz, who I started following after October 7th, had no idea that she knew so much about the subject. She was great. Judy Gold was great. And these aren't people that I would think, oh, they're my go-to for information about the Beatles, So you've done a good job of bringing in podcast guests who aren't necessarily like who you would think of. And then you've also got people directly in the music industry. So, and some big names. I mean, you've got some big names as your guests. So it's pretty cool how you've gotten them.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, our mutual friend Leanne is a big part of why I was able to get some of those guests. Jonah Platt is a great example. So people listening might know Jonah from his Being Jewish podcast. They might know him as Fiyero from Wicked, or an actor who's been in a number of different things. But Jonah is a musician who is a Beatles super fan. And when you start talking about the Beatles, like his eyes light up, and like he knows a lot, and he really has a ton of knowledge on the subject. And so when we're talking about Storied, he's like, "Listen, man, when you come to LA, if you do the show, I'm performing. Like I'm in on this." I'm
That's
like,
so cool.
"Oh, okay." So he's a great example of somebody who, like you said, is not necessarily somebody that we would think of as the Beatles expert. If you go to one of his shows, he always covers a Beatles song because he loves the Beatles. Yeah. On the flip side, you look at somebody like John Ondrasak from Five for Fighting, who's a real musician. I air quotes there for those who are listening, right? Like he's in the music industry. He's been in the music industry for 30 years, a ton about the Beatles. And I'm grateful that he's passionate about Jewish community and about Israel, and is willing to take his time to talk about what's going on.
Yeah. And it was a great conversation. Definitely go look for Storied, everybody. It's on YouTube. It's on podcast channels. It's everywhere we like to listen, as we like to say.
Yeah.
And I will say, Jonah Platt is one. I'm a big fan of his podcast. He's on my regular. I listen to him when I walk. And I don't know if it's actually him or not, but you get DMs back from him if you message him. It's really, I mean, it really feels like it's him. So if it's not him, then it's somebody really good at doing what I do.
No, it's him. It's him.
Yeah,
I've talked to him about it.
That's awesome. So yeah, he's great. But a lot of them, I mean, I've listened to all the episodes. Sometimes I watch on YouTube, sometimes I listen while I'm walking, but I learn a lot. I mean, I've learned a ton about the Beatles that why would I know this information? So it's great what you've done. I'm excited to see what comes next. And I know, tell us a little bit about how the women's show came together, because I know that's brand new. You've done it once, but you are taking it on the road. In fact, all of the shows are available to go on the road. But you had Dr. Logan Levkoff as your moderator at the Detroit show at the Berman Center. So tell us a little bit about how you kind of pulled that together, because there were so many women featured, not just singers, but all kinds of people from the music industry.
Yeah. So Logan is incredible. I'm a big fan of hers. I think that she's got a good head on her shoulders and is passionate about the Jewish community and passionate about life. And I'm a fan of hers. I think she's great. I was looking, most shows is me talking and then the band plays a song. And then it's me talking and the band plays a song. And the origin of this show was really when we were doing the reggae, when I was writing the script for the reggae show, I realized that all of the stories were about men and there were two stories that mentioned women. And I was like, wow, that's underrepresentation in realizing that in that genre, that's just what it looks like. And I was like, okay, my next show has to be focused on women and Jewish women. And then there was this, I did the math because I'm a spreadsheet guy. So I'm like, in the first 4 shows, we've got 65 stories that mention like 300 different Jewish people. Of those 65 stories, there's 7 stories about women and there's about 30 or 40 women mentioned. And I'm like, okay, there's some underrepresentation here and we're going to have to correct that. And so I started writing the script. And as I was writing the script, I'm like, it's going to be weird to have me in front of a all-female band telling these stories because I can't describe what it feels to be a young girl listening to Barbra Streisand. Right? I can't describe firsthand what it felt like to be a young woman listening to Amy Winehouse and seeing her cultural effects and fashion, and I was like, I gotta bring somebody in. There were a few people who suggested that I just hand my script to somebody else. And then I was like, well, that doesn't seem authentic either. A, because it might show, but B, like, it'd be strange to just hand the script and be like, here, read this words performing monkey. Like,
Right.
I don't think that that's the experience that anybody's looking for. And so the idea of a co-narrator, right? Like somebody to bounce these ideas off of, it was really scary because I'm not used to that experience. And so I spent a lot of time with Logan prepping and saying, like, this is not a script. This is an outline. What else should we be talking about? What else do you want to mention? What others? And she contributed a lot to this is the story that we should tell, or we should say it this way, or I have this to add. And so this wasn't my script. This was my outline. And Logan really contributed a ton to the formation of the words. And then she's a pro. So she studied the material. I think we rehearsed, a number of times where we went back and forth on the stories. And it went so well that people after the fact were like, Benji, you should have a co-moderator or co-narrator with you every time. And I'm like, that was not the result that I was working on, and they're like, well, we got to find people because the bouncing off of each other
Right.
went well. And I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know what that means for the future. What it means for this is that this show went well.
That's good.
And I'm really grateful for that.
That's great. And you've got shows coming up in other cities. Will you tell people where they can find you next? Are they public?
They're not public yet,
Okay,
but
so we can't say.
have, yeah. So we
Watch
have
the socials. We'll tell you on
Yes.
social.
Exactly. So we have a Beatles show scheduled. It's international. It's in Canada. So we'll be doing the Beatles show in Canada. We're actually working on doing the Dead show in Canada later this year also. We are doing the reggae show again later this summer on the other side of the country. Lots of announcements coming soon. But yeah, we would love to bring Storied to any Jewish community that would want to see our production.
And a super cool plug about the reggae show is that you have a special guest that comes on stage with you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So we do this show with Matisyahu, who comes out, and it's really cool to see him. He doesn't do all the songs, but he comes out and he adds to the show. And it's really cool to sort of see that nonlinear line of progression. So just to explain what I'm saying, one of the beautiful things about the reggae show is not just about the Jewish contributors, it's really about the Jewish content. And the idea that Rastafarianism draws from the same well as Judaism, and so much of the ethos and theology and ideas behind Rastafarianism, it comes from Judaism. And so when they talk about Babylon and Zion, and so many lyrics that come from Tehillim, Psalms, and other places in the Tanakh. And most people don't know that. And so I really dig into those crossovers and then say, okay, now we're going in the other direction. We've got Matisyahu, who took that same conversation in the other direction, and he drew from the old Rastafarianism, or the old Rastafarians and the old reggae tunes. Clearly learned so much from them, and in a very respectful way that became a two-way street. And I think that that's really cool.
It's really cool. And to anyone out there listening who isn't familiar with Matisyahu, if you send your kid to Jewish camp, they learn the song one day, and that is Matisyahu. That's how I learned him. It's a beautiful song. I was sang at my kids' bar and bat mitzvah. So, okay, so I'm going to shift gears a little bit because we talk about social media on here. So I want to talk a little bit about how you started marketing Storied and how you sort of looked at social media. I came into the picture when December, January, something like that.
So
Yeah, and really in more of a supportive role. My role here is to push out content. I know that you're doing, so if somebody messages, they're talking to you, they're not talking to me. So that is all 100% authentic, but, learning a lot about your voice and the Storied voice. But before you got to that point, what was sort of the impetus for, we need to outsource at least part of this social media? I mean, I guess, why'd you call me?
I mean, the answer is very simple, and that is time and energy. Social media takes time. One of the things that I don't know what the language content restrictions are here, but one of the things that really pisses me off about
No
social media
restriction.
is, okay,
Listen,
good.
I have you on video with what you said in the Never Is Now panel. So if anyone hasn't seen that, they can certainly go and find it on social. We shared it, and it was
Good.
perfect.
The current social media accounts that are like fake imams and fake rabbis and fake priests that are AI generated, that have millions of followers who are reading the same script. It's not reading, it's saying the same script geared towards different communities, is infuriating, right? Why is that popular, right? And the answer is just like in the old news world, if it bleeds, it leads, right? So these unpleasant conversations go viral, but that's few and far between. The real deal social media is relatable content that people can have a relationship with, for lack of a better term. And in order to produce that, you need to do one of a few things. You either need to pop a camera up and, talk to the camera, which is what I do on my personal social media, or you need to be able to take the content that you already have, which we have a ton of at Storied. We have hours and hours, dozens of hours of both live show and podcast material, and sift through it to publish interesting snippets to drive back to the website or the podcast or the account. And, when you have stuff like Opus Clip and Riverside and, the stuff that if you're doing social media, they're marketing to you, Opus Clip is great, but if they give you 30 clips, 6 of them are usable, and if you're, pardon my French, if you're dumb enough to just say, I'm going to publish these 30 clips, you're not going to get the results that you want. And so you can take the Opus clip, sift through the 30, find the 6, just the other 24, get it to 15, and then you still got to publish it. And then you still have to respond. And then you still have to write captions. And then you still have to put in links. And that stuff is important to me because I want it to be done well. I want to have a good presence, and I want it to represent who we are, and I want it to grow organically. I just don't have 40 hours in the day. And when I figure out how to have 40 hours in the day, Shane, I won't need you anymore. In the meantime, I can give you, hey, here's all of our content. Let's get it out there. And I can check that off my list and say, it is an investment in my time and energy to hand this over to you. I'm not doing a commercial for you. I'm doing a commercial for, smart people who know how to delegate and have time management skills and saying, if I can have you do this, there's no reason for me to be doing this.
Absolutely. And we've made adjustments as we've gone. We kind of have changed over the past few months what we're sharing, when we're sharing it, how we're doing it. So, it does take a little bit of a science to figure out what's working and checking the numbers. So anyway, I've learned a ton. I like being, part of your brand, part of your voice. It's a lot of fun.
I appreciate it.
What's coming up next? Well, first of all, let me ask you a question I forgot to ask you this. Who's the first concert you ever saw?
There's two answers to that. Because, well, actually, there's three answers to that. So my dad was part of a Jewish music world, and so the first concert that I ever saw was probably my dad. My dad wrote the music for a band called the Diaspora Yeshiva Band, which was a big Jewish band in the late '70s through almost to the late '80s, and so you know, those were part of my childhood. And then my dad was also friends with and played with Shlomo Carlebach. So like childhood bands was like that. The first like concert that I went to outside of that was a Jewish band called Rock.
I remember
And
them.
I
Yeah.
remember I was like 9 years old and Rock came to Detroit and it was like the biggest thing in the world. And I still follow Lenny Solomon on social media, and my wife and kids absolutely hate when we're singing. We're listening to a song, and I go into the Rock words, and they're like, "That's terrible! Don't do that." And I'm like, "Sorry, that is ingrained in me." And I know those words, and forever grateful to Lenny and the Schluckers for the Jewish education that I got from them. Outside the Jewish world, the first concert I ever saw was a double billed Foo Fighters and Red Hot Chili Peppers. And that was in 1997 or 1998. I don't remember. But me and my friends argued over whether it was the Foo Fighters with the Red Hot Chili Peppers playing after them or were the Foo Fighters opening for the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Yeah.
I guess one of life's mysteries you'll never know.
Especially since they were swapping. So one night the Chili Peppers would open and one night Foo Fighters would open.
That's
And it
cool.
went back and forth. So there was truly no headliner. They were co-headlining, and it was awesome. I think I saw 3 shows on that tour, which set me up for being a Deadhead Fish fan who would go to countless concerts. I'd see Fish. I think I saw them like 60 plus times in 2003 and 2004.
That's a lot. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, my brother's a huge Rush fan. He's like, I've seen Rush 12 times. And I'm like, I've seen Fish 12 times in a month, so.
Wow. That's awesome. My first
Yeah.
concert ever, my parents took my brother and I was in like 4th grade. We went to Freedom Hall here in Louisville to see Kenny and Dolly. And I did not want to go. I was mortified that this is what we were doing. I took my
Amazing.
Walkman and I listened to Michael Jackson the entire time, which is so appalling and embarrassing. If I had the
Right.
chance to see Kenny and Dolly today, do you know what I would give? Like, what a brat I was.
That's amazing.
What is the next concert you're headed to?
The next concert that I'm headed to, that's a good question. I mentioned my daughter's got special needs. We went through a pretty rough couple of years where she was in the hospital a lot. So I stopped buying tickets to concerts in advance, except for a rare, like, I'm definitely buying that and, we'll figure it out if we can't go. So I generally don't buy tickets to concerts in advance. But Susan Tedeschi and Derek Trucks have a band called the Derek Trucks Band. And that is my wife's favorite band. And we have tickets. They'll be here later this summer. But I'm sure that there's going to be a few shows that we see before then. So,
Very cool.
Yeah.
My next show, I'm going to see Bon Jovi at MSG this summer with my husband and my best friend and her husband. And I can't wait. I'm so
That sounds
excited.
terrible.
I cannot wait because we watched the documentary and we're like, this could be it. This could be the last time he tours. So
Right.
I'm very
I'll say that
excited.
the most surprising show that I wasn't expecting to enjoy that I really did was Bruce Springsteen. I
Loved it. Loved it. I saw it in Atlanta. So good.
I'm not a Bruce Springsteen fan in general. I almost laugh every time I see him sing because he always looks like he's about to have an aneurysm and there's like a vein popping out of his neck and the thing bulging out of his forehead. I'm like, dude, you're gonna have a heart attack on stage. But he played in Detroit at Little Caesars Arena, and a friend of mine had a suite and we went and it was great. And I was like, this is entertaining, but I feel like I've seen it once. I never have to see it again. But I watched the documentary that they made, the movie, not
Movie,
documentary.
right? Yeah.
And I was like, I'd love to see like a solo acoustic Bruce Springsteen. I don't think he does that anymore. So,
Yeah, I don't know.
um,
That's cool. My wish list, I want to see Pink at the Sphere. She's going to the Sphere next year, and I think it's next year. I really want to go. I've seen her twice. She's a great performer. I would love to see her. And, she is Jewish woman, so that's
yep. She
another
was
reason.
one of the stories in
I
Storied.
know. Yeah, she's up on the
So,
screen behind your picture. So
yep.
that's
Yep.
awesome. All right. So, Benji, for people who don't yet follow Story, tell everybody all the ways that they can engage, follow you, connect, watch the show, all of that.
Yeah, so I'm really easy to find on social media. I'm at Benji Rosenzweig. Storied on Instagram is Storied at Storied Show. Same thing with YouTube and Facebook. It's just at Storied Show. If you listen to podcasts on Apple or Spotify, Storied is a word. There's like 18 different Storied podcasts. So you're going to want to search like Storied Jewish music and it'll come up. It's Storied, the untold Jewish stories behind your favorite music. And it's there. But yeah, that's how you can find us. And we respond to messages. I mean, I respond to messages and I have those conversations. If you are part of an organization, whether it's a federation or a JCC or a school, we want to have these conversations and do the show. And actually, speaking of school, if I may plug something that's coming up. So we started teaching a curriculum about Storied at Franklin Jewish Academy here in Michigan. And we're working on making this a curriculum that any school or adult Jewish education program can teach. And like a Jewish senior learning program at a JCC, like we'll hand you the information and it's a curriculum that you can teach anywhere. And so I'm really looking forward to sort of building that out and find these opportunities.
You're one busy man.
Correct. I have a wonderful team who's helping me keep it all together.
Yes. Well, I'm glad to be on it. Thank you for coming on the Social Dialogue podcast today. It's awesome to see you and keep doing what you're doing. We need it out there.
Thank you, Shane.
Thanks for joining us on the Social Dialogue podcast. If you liked today's conversation, be sure to leave us a 5-star rating and a review and share it with a friend.
Keep the dialogue going with us on social. Find us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube.
I'm Shane.
And I'm Jenna.
Thanks for listening.